Hi, and welcome to the PM Woodwind YouTube channel. My name is Jon Griffith, and I'm here to talk to you about Martin saxophones. Now, Martin was a company that was founded in 1905 by John Henry Martin, originally from Germany, and originally named, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but Johann Heinrich Martin. The company started making saxophones in 1914 and went up until 1971 when LeBlanc actually bought the company, and from that time on they took Yamaha horns and actually stamped them with the Martin name. So if you have a Martin that's from after 1971, it's actually Yamaha horn. But I'm here to talk to you about the horns that they made between that 1914 and 1971 range. So there's a few different types of models and like submodels in between, but I'm going to kind of talk about the main models of Martins, and that's the Martin Handcraft, which was started in 1914, and then there was the Martin Committee, which was started in 1936. And then the Martin Committee II, which was started in 1939. And then in 1945 there was the Committee III, which is also commonly known as the Martin. To start with, for the Martin Handcraft, I actually have an example of one. This is a Martin Handcraft Bari that's been gold plated. The original gold plating on this. And this one's from 1925. This is my own personal Bari saxophone. Some of the things about these horns, this one has bevel tone holes. The early ones actually didn't have that, they just had the straight tone holes, but later changed to bevel tone holes later in the series. These are very kind of almost connish horns, very big, dark sound, obviously very big bell, very big bore to them. The key work on them is kind of also similar to a con. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's a great sounding horn, and definitely worth it, especially because you can usually get these horns pretty cheap because they're not very expensive horns. The one thing about this one I will point out that's kind of an interesting little thing about it is if you can see here on the side keys, normally you would have 3 side keys, one for the high E, one for your middle C, and then one for your B flat. On this horn they actually combine the high E and the side C key into the same key. So you would just use the same key for both fingerings or both uses for them, which was a very interesting thing when I first got this horn. I wasn't actually really sure what was going on with it, but very nice playing horn, very big sound. Now to move on to the next model. This one is actually the precursor to the Committee. This is called a Martin Handcraft Imperial. Now the Handcraft Imperials were made from 1933 to 1936. They look very similar to a Committee. The only difference really in the looks is you're going to see on the bell what's the skyline and searchlight engraving. You'll see a searchlight coming up, the skyline up here, and then the Martin logo. The Committee ones are very good playing horns. You get kind of a mix between a con and a king, where you get the dark sound of a con, but still some of that punch that you would get, and a little bit tighter feeling that you get in a king. And you'll hear me say that about most of these Martins. They all seem to have kind of that little mix between the two. The Committee ones are also the key work on them is a little bit nicer than the Handcraft per se. A little bit easier to get around on them. Tuning is pretty good on them as well. And just a little bit smaller of a bell, you'll notice, than like say the Handcraft or that you'll see later in the Committee 3. Moving on to the Committee 2, it looks very similar to this. The only differences you'll see is in this brace in between, you'll see the Martin logo actually placed in here. And then on the engraving down the bell in big letters, you'll see the Martin name, Martin. And then the engraving around it is the lion crown, which you'll see a crown up here on the top and a little lion engraving. Those horns, again, you have a little bit smaller bell to them. What I really like about those horns is the octave key on your left hand is just incredibly comfortable. It's one of the better feeling octave keys I've seen. And you start to see the adjustable right thumb rest on them, which you also see in this Committee 3. Now to go on to the Committee 3, also known as the Martin. I have a couple examples of these. To start, this is my own personal alto saxophone. It's a Committee 3 The Martin from 1959. These horns are kind of to combat the Mark VI at the time. Very, again, the cross between the Con and the King. Very good playing horns. The couple things I will say about these. First of all, I should mention is the tone holes. On all these Martin horns, the tone holes are actually soft soldered onto the body. Because of this, it's always good to get these old horns checked out, just because over time the soft solder will start to go down, and then you'll start getting leaks between your tone hole and the body of the saxophone. So you always want to check on that, and then if you do get a leak, you can get it soft soldered back on and plug up that leak. The other thing about these is just the table mechanism on the left hand for all your like low B flat, low B, low C sharp. These have to be sprung pretty lightly, just because of all the metal and key work on here. You don't want it sprung too hard because you're going to be doing a lot of work to hit the keys then. If you can even see on this, like if you start to push it this way, the keys close pretty easily. But while it's still up being played, works just fine. Besides that, oh, and also a little side note, as far as Martins, if you want to see somebody playing a Martin on Art Pepper's album, Art Pepper meets the rhythm section, he actually has the Martin Alto, and is playing it on that album, so you can go check that out. I also have this, which is my own personal tenor, which is also a Martin Committee 3. This one's from 1956. All these are, by the way, original lacquer, or in the case of the Bari, original gold plating. Again, great playing horn. You see here the adjustable thumb, like I was mentioning before in the Committee 2 and these Committee 3s. As far as the Committee 3s go, there are a couple of horns that they made during this time that were called the the Official Music Man and the Magna. These two are kind of a little bit rarer of the Martin Committee IIIs. The way you'll be able to tell these is on the bell. For the Official Music Man, it'll actually say the Official Music Man on the bell. And for the Magna, you'll see a little star, almost cross-shaped, just below the engraving of V. Martin on the bell, and then it'll say Magna on them. Those horns tend to be really good playing horns from what I've seen. I'm not sure if they like hand pick them out or anything, but they're really good players out of the ones that I've seen at least. And speaking of rare Martin Committees, we have this horn that we just got in the shop. I do apologize, this is actually going to be overhauled through our shop and then put up for sale later on. So it's a little dirty right now, but we definitely wanted to kind of show this horn off. This actually is a Committee 3 that's sterling silver plated with a gold bell inlay, and it's also stamped US, which means that this horn is was made for the Army band. And the American companies at that time, they kind of, and you'll see this with Kahn and Buscher, for the horns that they made for the Army band, it seems that they silver plated them and gave them the gold bell inlay. This one, I have to say, is one of the only ones I've ever seen of this. Very rare, but even in the condition that's in right now, which it does need a repad, it still plays great. So I can only imagine when this thing is actually completely done up how well it will be. Alright, now to give you an idea of just how some of these Martins sound, I'm going to be playing my own personal horns, my tenor, my alto, my Bari, on a transcription of Buddy Rich's arrangement of Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. So please enjoy that, and thank you very much for coming.